Why you opening it?
Mean what?
You know, the video.
One minute. The Tata is more than expensive. The variety shade more than expensive.
But I was brown shirt, no?
ಅದನ್ನ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ ಕಾಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅದು ಟೆಲಿಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ
Nel malo. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ ಪ್ರಶಾಂತ್ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಬಾ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಬನ್ನಿ. ಹ್ಮ್. Right, followed. Yeah, good evening. Let me introduce first. So my name is Sagar. Okay. So I am here to teach science and technology. I think some of you have attended demo class, okay, in the morning batch. Google slides. Android only,
camera ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಖಂಡ
ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ
ಇದಕ್ಕ
ಕ್ಯಾಮ್ರಾ ಅಡ್ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ
ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಶೇರ್ ಆಗಿದೆ
So how many of you are from science background? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So how many from arts? Commerce? So how many of you want me to cover basic science also? Basic science in the sense physics, especially physics like light topic, reflection, diffraction, sound. All of you want to cover? Huh? Science. Yes, sir. Because we don't remember anything. Okay, so fine. So we'll cover basic science also, right? So basic physics especially, right? So work, force, energy. So basically kinetic energy, potential energy and all. Okay, so Newton's laws of motion, Kepler's laws, right? So surface tension. So can you hear me? Balcony. Full. Okay, good. Yeah. So surface tension, viscosity. So these all come in basic physics, right? So that also will cover. And how many of you are joining today first class, like not attended the demo class? 7, okay, right. So if you look at the UPSC or KPSC prelims and even mains question paper, so there are few topics, right? So which needs to be covered, right? So based upon that, so we have listed some topics, right? So based upon the previous year question and also the syllabus, right? So that already we have discussed in demo, but for these people, right, we will cover once again, and it will be a revision also. Okay. So yeah, first of all, please introduce yourself. Gagan. Yeah, where are you from, Gagan? PS University. Okay. BBA. Okay. Vardhini. Automation engineer at? Okay. So fresher or already experienced? Okay, joined. Shilpa. MA in economics. Okay. Monisha. Sorry? Counselor in? Okay. Kirtana. Okay, Kirtana. BSc. Okay. Bhavani. Puja. Second year BA. Good. Only starting. Okay. Chinmay. Yeah. Engineering. Which branch? CS. Okay. Hamsa. Yeah. I forgot actually. Okay. Hamsa. Civil engineering. Sheetal. B in computer science. Sahana. Sorry? BSc in CSE. Okay. CS computer science. First year MBA. Graduation? BCom. Shashank. Okay. Shashank. Civil engineer. Arun. Mechanical engineer. Okay. So fine. So again, it's like so preparing for UPSC means starting from school again. Yeah. So most of us, you know that 6th to 10th textbooks are compulsory, and for science also it is compulsory, right? So 6th to 10th, and if you are preparing for KPSC also, it is compulsory, right? Because in KPSC paper 2, it has been clearly mentioned that 15 questions will be from the science, right? Apart from current affairs, right? In paper 1, they can ask, right? So science current affairs also, but in paper 2, for sure, 15 questions will be there. Okay. And for UPSC prelims, there'll be around, again, 10 to 15 on an average. So sometimes it can go up to 20 also, but 15 is average. Okay. So I'm also an engineer by default, right? So they say, no, engineers can do anything except engineering. Okay. So anyway, so I've written 2 UPSC mains and 2 KPSC mains and 1 KPSC interview. So could not clear. Right? It's going on since 2019. Okay, teaching in various institutes and also in an academy. Right. Yeah, first we'll list the topics, right, which we will cover, right, in this science class, basically. Okay. So first is the nuclear technology. It's fine. Okay. Right. So first topic will be nuclear technology. So basic. Okay. So what is an atom? The structure of atom, basically. Right. So what are protons? Right. So what is neutron? Right. Then what makes the atomic number? Right. And what is mass number? So what are isotopes? So what is radioactivity? Right. So carbon dating. Right. So that is basic part. Right. So then the core nuclear technology, so which involves the nuclear reactions, right? So especially nuclear fission, right, and nuclear fusion. Okay, right. So currently, so there is a current topic, right? So based on the nuclear technology. So basically, nuclear fusion reactors, right? So very important from the exam perspective. Okay, right. Already they have asked the question, right? But still, this research is going on, right? And it is about to be completed in 2024, so they can ask again, right? And India is also planning to build a nuclear fusion reactor, so research is going on. Okay, so they can ask about nuclear fusion, okay, especially. Okay, but we must know about nuclear fission also, right? So how the fission happens, right? How the fusion happens, right? So for example, the solar energy which we receive, right? So it is actually the result of nuclear fusion, which is happening inside the sun. Okay. So nuclear fission, nuclear fusion, and most important point here is the nuclear energy program. Okay, I'm not very much involved in using the smart board, so please cooperate for some time so that, right? So it takes some time. Okay, so nuclear energy program. Okay. So the 3-phase, right? So nuclear energy program of India, right? How the Homi Jahangir Baba, okay, right, has planned this nuclear energy program for India in 3 phases. And which are these 3 phases, right? So anyone watched Rocket Boys web series? So no, sir, we are preparing for UPSC. We don't. You must take some time to watch, right? So You must give some time to entertainment also, right? Not always in book. Okay. You must have heard many interviews, right? So I'm not prepared for UPSC in coaching institutes. I've prepared my own on my own, right? So that's all. That's a different thing, but make some time for entertainment also. So it's important. Okay, because if you are sticking only for books means, right, you will just, okay. Yeah. So in Rocket Boys, they have shown like how the nuclear program started in India and also the space program started in India, right? What were the difficulties, right? It's not like a documentary, but it's dramatic series, but it is interesting. Okay, right? So nuclear energy program, right? Even today we are lagging behind. So what is the reason for that, right? So just 3% of our electricity comes from the nuclear energy. Okay, right? So we are planning for more reactors, but there are many problems, right, due to various reasons. Okay, so nuclear energy program and also the nuclear weapon testing. Okay, right, so nuclear weapon testing, right? So then different international treaties, right, and agreements, right, related to nuclear technology and also the nuclear weapons, right? So once the World War II ended, right, so the UN organizations, United Nations organization came into force, right? So then many institutions under UN, right, so they started working in different fields. Okay, so one among them is this IAEA, right, International Atomic Energy Agency, right? So what is the role of International Atomic Energy Agency in nuclear technology? Okay, so that we have to focus on. So then different treaties, for example, NPT, right? So Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, right? So why India is not a member and what NPT is actually. So what are the major areas of focus under this NPT, right? So then NSG, right? So Nuclear Supplier Group. So again, why India is not a member of Nuclear Supplier Group and what this Nuclear Supplier Group is actually. Okay. So then CTBT, right? So these are the different treaties related to nuclear weapons and nuclear technology. Okay, right? And recently India joined some groups, right? For example, Australia group, right? MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime, right? And Wassenaar Agreement, right? What is the importance, right, of these groups? Why India joined? Okay, right? India never joined NPT, but India is joining other, right? So treaties and agreements. So what is the importance of these agreements, right? So that also we'll see. Okay. So then after nuclear technology, right, we'll move on to defense. Okay, so different defense equipments. So missiles, right? So different types of missiles. So what is a surface to surface missile, right? So what is a surface to air missile? So what is air to air missile? So this is basically based on the launch mode. Okay. So then we have based on the path followed by missile, right? So that is ballistic missile. So ballistic missiles, right? So what are ballistic missiles, right? So for what purpose these ballistic missiles are used, right? And how they work actually, right? So then what are cruise missiles, right? And how they work, right? And India's perspective regarding the missile development. For example, there is a program called as Integrated Guided Missile Development Program, IGMDP, right? Which are the different missiles developed under this program, right? Who is known as the Missile Man of India? Be loud. Abdul Kalam, right? So APJ Abdul Kalam, right? The Missile Man of India, right? The a boy from a village in Rameshwaram, right, joined ISRO. So first worked on rockets, right? So then he got confidence that India can also make missiles, right? So now we are totally independent in missile technology. So there is no need to import. Okay, right? So yeah, so IGMDP. So different missiles, for example, Agni, Prithvi, right? Akash, Nag, Trishul, right? So these are the 5 different missiles developed under IGMDP. So then other missiles which are developed outside IGMDP, for example, BrahMos, right? So what are the features of these this BrahMos? Okay, right? For example, it is a cruise missile, supersonic missile. What is supersonic, right? And what is Mach number? Okay, so basically the speed of missiles is measured in Mach. Okay, right? So what is supersonic? So what is hypersonic, right? And there are different types of engines, right, which are being developed for the supersonic, hypersonic, both rockets and also missiles, right? For example, called as ramjet engine, right? What is scramjet engine? So ramjet, scramjet difference. Okay. So then the Barak missile, right? So Astra, right? So Nirbhay. So then missile defense systems, right? If we develop only missiles, then it's of no use because our enemies, right? So they are also developing missile, right? For example, China is a powerful, right? So country, basically it's a P5 country, right? So P5, you know what is P5? So permanent 5 in yeah. Okay. So UNSC, right? United Nations Security Council, and these P5 members are also called as nuclear powered countries. Okay, which means they have declared openly that we have nuclear weapons, right? So before starting this NPT, right? Yeah. So China is also developing powerful missiles, and our dear brother, dear neighbor Pakistan, right? Even though they don't have money for food, right? But they have, right? So a lot of friends, okay, right? So basically China and all, right? So they will extend help for Pakistan. So Pakistan also can get missiles, right? So if we launch a missile, Pakistan can also launch a missile, right? Have you heard about Israel and Palestine? Israel and Palestine. So Middle East, right? So these are 2 small countries, right? If we divide Karnataka into 3 parts, right? So one Israel will be there. Okay, right? So Palestine is like 3 to 4 districts of Karnataka. Okay, right? So they both are independent countries, but there is conflict since 1960s. So what will happen there? Right? If some small issue or conflicts happen between these 2 countries, this Palestine, right? So they launch missiles like Diwali rockets, right? Hundreds of missiles, right? So what Israel will do, right? So in counter attack, they can also launch missile, right? Within fraction of second, Israel can destroy Palestine. But again, this will create a lot of problems, right, at the international level, right? Because Palestine is an Arab country. Okay, so there are many powerful Arab countries, right, which will come to the support of Palestine. Okay, so Israel has developed a technology called as Iron Dome, right? Iron Dome is basically not a physical dome, right? So there is a system, right? So called as missile defense system, right? If they launch missiles or rockets, so what Israel will do is Israel will track those missiles, intercepts those missiles, and they will destroy it in the air itself. Okay. So now India is also developing that kind of technology. So there is already, we have developed that kind of tested also. Okay. So called as ballistic missile defense system. Okay. And we are importing a missile defense system from Russia, right? So it's there in news, right? So called as S-400. Okay. Right. So now Russia and US, they are in continuous conflict, right? Even though they are not fighting directly, but indirectly they are fighting, right? So Ukraine is getting a lot of support from West. Okay. So what USA will do, they will threaten other countries, right, who have partnership with Russia. So there is an agreement called as CATSA, right? So called as Countering Adversaries of America Through Sanctions Act, right? Which means whoever will partner with the enemies of USA, so they will be put under sanctions. So India was also being threatened. But right, so now we are not the same India which we were there in 1960s or 70s. Now we are more powerful, right? So economy wise also, so defense wise also, even in trade, right? So wise also, right? So then also we tried, we used diplomatic skills and we imported these S-400, right? And still it is pending, right? So these are called as missile defense systems, right? So that if enemy launches a missile, right, we can intercept it and destroy it in the air itself. Okay, right? India could not develop the defense system for cruise missiles, so that's why we are importing it, called as S-400. Okay, right? So then any other current affairs, miscellaneous topics related to defense technology, so especially missiles and all, we will cover, right? So after missiles, right, so we have Navy equipments, right? For example, Navy ships, right? So there are different types of Navy ships, right? So called as aircraft carrier, right? So aircraft carrier is basically a largest Navy ship, right? So where aircraft landing and takeoff will be done. Okay, right? For example, INS Vikramaditya. So currently the largest, right, aircraft carrier in India, right? So almost some 30 aircrafts, right? So can be stationed, right, on this, right? So ship. If a war is happening, right, with our neighbors, means even though, our if enemy country or, right, so China or Pakistan, if they attack through ocean, right, so we are well equipped, right? So that is one of the purpose of, right, so defense equipments, right? You may tell, right, so what is the purpose of spending so much of money when there is no war happening, right? Is there any war happening currently? No. So then also we are spending like 70,000 crore, 80,000 crore in a year, right, to purchase different defense equipments. So what is the purpose? That is called as deterrence. Okay. Right. So deterrence. So deterrence in the sense, if our enemies or neighbors, right, are developing a new technology, so then it will be considered as a threat. Right. For example, nuclear weapon. So China developed a nuclear weapon, right? So China can threaten us, no? Right? We will launch nuclear weapon if you don't give us Arunachal Pradesh or Aksai Chin area, right? So then what India should do? Right? India should beg, no, sir. Right? So we'll give whatever you want, right? So we'll listen whatever you say. So no, right? Because India is a sovereign country, right? In polity is there, no? Sovereign. Sovereign means nobody is above us. So basically India is an independent country, right? Even though we are member of many international organizations, we are not obliged, right, to listen their orders. Okay, sovereignty, right? So deterrence in the sense, if you mess with us, right, so we also have those kind of technologies, so we will also take revenge, right? If you launch a missile, we are also having a missile, we will also launch it, right? If you use nuclear weapon, so in retaliation, we will also use a nuclear weapon. So that is called as deterrence, right? If not for defense, at least for deterrence. So deterrence in the sense, right? So just to make sure the enemy that to not mess with us. So that is one of the major purpose. So that's why we spend a lot of money, right? So not only India, so every country spends. So especially USA and China, they are the, right? So they are the biggest, right? So defense, right, budget countries basically. Okay, right? So biggest defense budget countries, China, so USA, right? So they are again in a trade war, right? So okay, that's separate, right? So yeah, Navy ships. So Navy ships aircraft carriers. So that is a segment, right? So this Vikramaditya is again imported one, and we are developing our own also. So already, right? So commissioned, for example, called as INS Vikrant. Okay. So INS Vikrant. So it is the indigenous aircraft carrier, right? So then in line, there are few more. Okay. So after aircraft carriers, there are other classes called as destroyer class. Destroyer class means it is a small ship, not too small, but like aircraft carrier, there is no space for landing and takeoff, right? It is just equipped with different weapons like missiles, radars and all, right? So it is used for war purpose only. So that is called as destroyer class. In that we have different classes. Okay. So then comes the frigates, right? So frigates basically for escorting purpose, right? So then the corvette class, right? So that is the smallest warfare ship. Okay. Right. So different projects are also going on. For example, project 15, project 17, right? So on project 75, right? So that is related to submarines. Okay. So now and then it will be news, right? So new in submarines, again, we have different classes, right? For example, diesel electric submarine, right? So nuclear powered submarine, right? And how this diesel electric submarine works, and what is this project 75, right? Which are the different submarines being developed under this project 75I, right? So there is a new technology, right, called as Scorpion class submarine. Okay, right? So Scorpion class, in the sense, normally submarines, right? So when they are underwater, right? So through diesel engines, right? They this energy is provided through diesel combustion, right? But for combustion, we require oxygen, correct? For combustion, right? So there is a requirement of oxygen. For that, that submarine needs to come to the surface, right? So now and then. But during wartime, right? So that will be compromised, right? If the submarine comes to the surface, then enemies can detect it and they can destroy it. Okay. Right. So that's why a new type of technology is being developed under the Scorpion class called as air independent propulsion, which means there is no requirement of oxygen, right? So even though it is working on diesel, so there is no requirement of oxygen. So it runs, right? So underwater for a long duration. So that is called a Scorpion class submarine, right? So then nuclear powered submarine, right? So which are the different submarines under nuclear powered, and also Scorpion class, and also diesel electric. Okay. So after submarines, so we have different surveillance systems, right? So different drones, right? For example, Rustum. Okay. So Lakshya, right? So there are different names for drones, right? And there is a airborne warning and control system, right? So indigenously developed. So that was also news, called as Netra. Okay. So these are all surveillance system. And then aerodynamic mechanism. So different aircrafts, right? So indigenously developed. So nuclear powered, right? So actually India is using very old aircrafts, right? So now and then crash will be happening, crashes, right? So our air force, right? So personnel, right, will lose their life unnecessarily, right? Even without fighting. Okay, because these aircrafts are very old, so 30, 35 years old. Okay, right? So Sukhoi, Mirage, MiG, right? So then indigenously developed aircrafts, for example, Tejas, right? So recently Aero Show was held in Bengaluru. Yeah, held or not? Yeah, right? So there they have displayed this Tejas, right? They can ask about Tejas. Okay, then different helicopters being used by the defense department, right? And imported, indigenously developed and all. Okay. So these topics will be covered in defense. Okay, right. After defense, so we'll move on to IT and computer. IT engineer. Okay, right. We are not going to cover programming and all, not coding. So just, right. So general topic, Okay, so applications, right? So applications of IT, right? So basically in e-governance, right? And general applications of IT, right? So they can ask in essay also, right? So no, and even in mains, okay, GS paper mains, right? Supercomputers, right? I've heard about supercomputers, supercomputers, right? So supercomputer development history, so applications of supercomputer, right? So then Indian mission on supercomputers, right? So then other computing technologies, right? For example, edge computing. So what is edge computing? Okay. So then quantum computing. So quantum, right? So recently, I think last year or right. So before last year, right? So Google claimed that one of their machine, right? So called as Sycamore, right? It has achieved quantum supremacy, right? So what is this quantum supremacy, right? How these quantum computers work, right? And what is the India's perspective regarding these quantum computers? Okay. So then, right? So different contemporary topics like IoT, Internet of Things, right? So most of you are using the smartwatches and all, so wearable devices. So there was a question in UPSC prelims. Okay, so the question was like this: on one fine early morning, right? You got a message, right? So that there are no vegetables left, right, in the refrigerator, right? So once you reach your car, right, so your smartwatch, right, so gives the indication that there is no fuel left in your, right, or little bit fuel left in your car, right? So some big question was there. Okay, right? So this defines which of the following technology. Okay, right? IoT, right? Internet of Things, right? So how IoT, right, actually works. So general, right? So not in depth. Okay, just for example perspective, there is no need to do PhD in science to write the UPSC. Okay, so general, right? So you must know what is IoT and where it can be applied. Okay, so that's it, right? So then AI, artificial intelligence, right? So how artificial intelligence works, right? So where it can be used. Okay, so for example, AI robots, right? So currently in trend. Okay, so there is a AI robot called as Sophie, and the Indian version is called as Rashmi, na? Yes, yes. They gave some name like that, Rashmi. Okay, so which can speak Bhojpuri. No, Bhojpuri language, Bihar, UP. Yeah, it can speak Bhojpuri, Hindi, English, right? And many countries, they are actually employing these robots, right, in as custom officials, as receptionists, right? So how India can use this AI technology, artificial intelligence technology, right? So for example, we have a lot of terrorism problem, right? And insurgency problem, right? And also Naxalite problem. So especially in red corridor states. So Chhattisgarh, right? Odisha, some parts of Madhya Pradesh, there is Naxal problem. Okay, right? So our CRPF Jawans, right? So they will be doing patrolling and suddenly a landmine will burst, right? So unnecessarily we'll lose a lot of life. Okay, so instead of sending, right, our armed forces, right, on patrolling in these difficult areas, right, we can send AI robots, right? So AI robots, they'll be having each and every data so that they can make their own decision and they will just, okay, even though if land mine burst also, there will be not, right, so much damage. Okay, but there is a lot of problems associated with the AI. So recently, experiment was being conducted in Japan by Defense Department only. What this AI robot did means it shot down some 12 people. Okay, so got corrupted. Right? So in Robo movie and all, it has been shown, right? So robots can be manipulated. Okay, when you are making them so much intelligent that they can learn on themselves, so why they will listen to you? Okay, right? So this happened recently in Japan, right? So it killed some 12 people, and it was being destroyed oftenly, and it was reassembling itself, right? It was programmed like that, right? So yeah, AI basically next future, or maybe the end of that humankind. We don't know. Okay, so AI, then virtual reality, augmented reality. So AR, VR. Anyone experience virtual reality?
Room button.
90. Okay. So basically there will be a device, right? So VR device, right? You can go and experience. It's there in right, many malls. It is there. So in Mantri Mall, it is there. Okay. So wonderful experience for 150 rupees. Right? You can watch some ghost videos. Okay. So it will be interesting. Okay. So VR. So again, applications of VR, right? So where it can be used, right? So again, especially education, right? You know, how our schooling and all is done. So now, right, new schools are coming up. So they are using new technologies, right? So uh, graphic videos and all. But our time, so especially my time, right? Some when I was in school, okay, in 90s. At that time, it was totally different, right? And even in college also, okay, right? If we are conducting any experiment, means again it was a theoretical, right? We never knew how light refraction takes place, how reflection takes place, right? So how actually biological cell looks like. Okay, yeah, we were using microscope and all again, right? It was like theoretical only. Okay, right? It's not in detail, right? How a mitochondria works, right? So especially this VR technology helps, right? For conducting research and all in medical field, right? And even in defense training, right? So VR can be used, and augmented reality again, right? So again, different concept. Okay, applications of AR and VR. So augmented reality. So there was a game called as Pokemon Go. So that was based on augmented reality. Okay, but it has been banned. Okay, right. So AR, VR. So then different malwares. Okay. So we know only virus, right, or worm, right? But there are different names for different malwares. So malware is nothing but a software with malicious intent, right? Either it wants to steal your data, like financial data, so bank details, right? So account PIN, right? Or your login ID, password, right? Or for cyber crimes, right? So they can send, for example, spyware. So recently in news, right? So our own government, right? So they were spying on the ministers and officials. So that's called as Pegasus. So Pegasus was a spyware. Okay. And before that, WannaCry. So this is previous year question actually. So WannaCry, Petya, right? R dash. Okay. Right. So cyber crime. So basically they are malwares. So what they will do? So they will just hack your computer and they will lock it. Right. Once you try to access your laptop or PC, so they will display a message. If you want access to your system or files, you need to pay this much amount of ransom, like kidnapping. Right? If they kidnap, what they will demand? They will demand ransom. So they will kidnap your computer. Right? So basically the software. So they will hack it. Right? And then they will ask money. So that is called as ransomware. Okay. And recently, AIMS Delhi, right? So systems were also hacked. And for 3-4 days, right? A malware attack was there. Okay. right? So those kind of malwares, okay, spyware, adware, right? So Trojan, rootkit, right? So that we'll discuss. Okay. So then, not required. Okay. And this one. The blockchain technology. Cryptocurrency, right? Cryptocurrency or blockchain, they are not same thing, but blockchain was used to develop cryptocurrency. So how blockchain works, right? And how the blockchain can be used in Indian perspective, right? You know, a lot of land record manipulation and all happens in India, right? So there'll be a lot of litigations, right? So your own land, right? So will be land record will be manipulated, right? So that cases will be running on in courts for many years. Okay. And recently the Telangana government, right, for the first time, they are using blockchain technology for maintaining land records. So basically it's called as smart contracts. Okay. Smart contracts, right? And other fields. So where blockchain can be used, right? IT and any other important topic in IT and computer engineers? Engineer, right? Yeah. Shashank. How the branch? Civil. Okay. Cyber security, right? So robotics, right? So cyber security, right? So this malwares comes under cyber security only, right? And the government steps, right, in cyber security. Okay. Sound here. Huh? Baba. Okay. So then, most important, space. Space technology. Right? Yesterday, ISRO launched 36 satellites at one go. Right? We have done already many times. Right? So we have launched 103 satellites at one go. Right? So 2-3 years back. Okay. Right. So this launch was basically the second launch of the commercial organization of ISRO called as, right, so New Space India Limited, NSIL. Okay. And we launched 36 satellites, right, in October, and 36 satellites yesterday. Right. So this is basically for a company called as OneWeb, a UK-based company. Right. So where Airtel owner Bharti Mittal is also one of the investors. Okay. Right. So yeah, in space, so we will be discussing about different orbits. Right. So what is a lower Earth orbit? Right. So which type of satellites are launched in lower Earth orbit? Okay. And a medium Earth orbit, and geostationary and geosynchronous orbit. Okay. Right. So distance, right? And how the satellites, right, so revolve around the Earth in different orbits. Right. So for example, in lower Earth orbit, right, so satellite movement will be very speed, right, the orbital speed, right? So a satellite can complete one revolution within 90 minutes, right? So if we want to observe the Earth, a particular place on Earth, right? It needs to be observed many times in a day. Okay. For those kind of satellites, we use lower Earth orbit, and for spying purpose, right? For surveillance purpose. Okay. Right. So orbits. So then launch vehicles, right? So SLV, that is satellite launch vehicle. So PSLV, right? So polar satellite launch vehicle. So what are the characteristics of this PSLV? Right. So then GSLV, okay, and recently developed LVM3, okay, right. So then SSLV, small satellite launch vehicle, right? And this PSLV is known as the workhorse of ISRO. So why it is called as workhorse of ISRO, right? So most efficient launches, okay, right? Even US, right? European countries, they are, right? So requesting us to launch their satellites using PSLV, okay, right? Because with a very small budget, right? So we can launch satellites into the orbit, right? Which is a very costly affair in those countries. Okay, so that's why this PSLV, right, is regarded as the workhorse of ISRO. So out of almost 55, from 52 or 53 are successful. Okay, right? So then, so different satellites in news. Okay, right? For example, AstroSat, right? So it's basically a space observation satellite. So that was the first space observation satellite of India. Okay, then Cartosat series, right? So cartography, you know what is cartography? Cartography, so map making. Okay, right? So it is also called as geographical information system. Okay, right? So that government is monitoring the community resources through this geographical information system using Cartosat satellites. Okay, right? So there is a program called as MG Narega, right? NREGS or NREGA. Okay, National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme or Act. Warning. Huh? Okay. So NREGA is basically a poverty eradication and employment generation scheme. Okay, right? So a lot of community assets are being built under NREGA, right? And a lot of corruption is also going on in NREGA. So one of the, right? So currently, one of the biggest scam we can say, that if you are from rural area, right, you may know about this NREGA, how it works and all. Okay. So a lot of community assets are being, right, so done in NREGA, right? So for those assets and all, monitoring is being done by the satellites. Okay, Cartosat satellites especially. Okay, right? So then the new technologies, for example, HISIS, right? Hyperspectral imaging satellites. Okay, right? Hyperspectral imaging satellites. So different spectrums, right? So to capture the images, right? What these satellites will do, right? So basically remote sensing, radar imaging, right? So from a distance, what they are doing, they are sensing, okay, right? Or they are taking images, right? So then we have communication satellites, right? For example, now, right? So currently the online class is going on, right? How it is possible, right? Using communication satellites, okay? So then the applications of communication satellites, right? So satellite phones, right? So television, telemedicine, right? So teleeducation, okay? And most important, the navigation satellite of India, right? We have developed our own navigation system, right? So called as Navik, right? So you guys are using GPS, right? So GPS is there, right? For maps and all. So GPS is, right? So US technology. Navik is our own Indian technology. Okay, but currently not embedded in phones, but in near future, right? It will come. And our armed forces, they are currently using Navik. Okay, so that is basically satellite is called as IRNSS, right? So Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. Okay, so Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. Okay. So then different missions of ISRO. For example, MOM, right? So Mars Orbiter Mission, right? So what were the objectives of MOM? Okay. So then Chandrayana 1, Chandrayana 2, and upcoming Chandrayana 3, right? So then Gaganyaan, okay, right? So basically the first human space mission of ISRO, right? We'll be sending, right? So 3 Air Force pilots, and today it was there in news, okay, right? So their first semester training is done, right? So they are being trained in, right, Human Space Center, right, in Bengaluru. Right, what will be the objective of this Gaganyaan? Right, so basically at a, right, so they have chosen an orbit at a distance of 400 kilometers, right? So a spacecraft will be sent there for 4 or 5 days, right? So they will conduct research, right, in this orbit, right, and they will come back, right? So basically, we wanted to develop this kind of technology. That was the first objective, and also to study how human body works in microgravity conditions. Okay, so that will help us to develop new medicines. Okay, right. So that is Gaganyaan. So then Shukrayaan, upcoming mission, right? And also solar mission of India, right? So called as Aditya L1. Okay, right. So these are the Indian missions, right? And some important international missions also will study. So related to NASA and European Space Agency. Okay. So that will be the space technology, right? Microgravity conditioning in the sense in space, right? So basically, first we have to escape the gravitational force of the Earth, right? Right. So there, the gravitational force will be very less, right? So for example, up to 160 kilometer, the gravitational force is very high. But after that, right, so gravitational force is very less. Okay, right? So that, so microgravity. So basically in space, how human body reacts. Okay, right, we'll go in detail in space technology. Okay, so then so nuclear, defense, computer, space. Okay. So then fifth will be the 3D printing. So now again, right, so something called as 4D printing is also coming up. Okay. So applications of 3D printing, right, especially organ, right, so printing. Okay. Organ donation is one of the biggest problem, especially in India. So nobody registers for that, right? In some countries in Europe, right? So compulsorily you have to register for organ donation. But India, it is not compulsory. And most of us, right, are not aware about the organ donation also. Okay. And organ, right, are scarce. Okay. Right. If you need organs, right, it is very difficult to get, right, organ from any person. Okay. Right. So this is the promising technology, right? So bionic materials can be used to produce kidneys, liver, and even heart also. Okay, right? So still under experiment, right? So 3D printing, also called as additive manufacturing, right? So not only the organic material, so even house, right? Many homes are being constructed using 3D printing, right? Especially China, Right, some 5,000 homes were constructed within a single day using 3D printing. Okay, right. So 3D printing. So then some biology, so that includes the biotechnology also. Right, so basics, so especially the cells, right, animal cell, plant cell, cell structure, right, so different organelles inside the cell, right, so chromosome, the structure of DNA, right, so then we will move on to biotechnology. Okay, so in biotechnology, recombinant DNA technology. Okay, so then tissue culture, right, so gene editing, right, so genetic engineering, right, so GM crops, that is genetically modified crops. Okay, so then applications of biotechnology and how biotechnology is being regulated in India. Okay, right, so you cannot simply genetically modify an organism or plant and release it into the environment, right? It has a lot of different effects. Okay, right, so there is a particular agency for that, right? So that must give the permission, so then only you can introduce that crop or animal into the environment, right? So called as Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee. Okay, so GEAC, right? So currently in India, so we have BT cotton, right, which was allowed, and recently there were talks that this mustard will also be allowed, called as DMH11. Okay, genetically modified mustard, right? So crop. Okay, so yeah, so biotech, right? So then diseases, so different diseases, right? So contagious, non-contagious diseases, hereditary, non-hereditary diseases, right? And the diseases which were in news, right? So for example, Zika virus, Ebola virus, right? So COVID-19, okay, right? And basically testing how diagnosis and all is done, right? So then some vector-borne diseases, right? So which are the bacteria diseases, right? Which are the protozoan diseases and viral diseases, and Mission Indradhanush, okay, the vaccination program, right, of Government of India, right? So then physics, right? So basic physics, right, which you can study on your own. If you want, we will cover. Want me to cover or? Huh? So we have Lucent's GK, no? Lucent's GK textbook is there, right? Not there. Okay. Okay, it's very comprehensively, right? Physics has been covered. Okay, but anyhow, right, we'll try to cover, right, in 2 or 3 classes, right? So topics like pressure, right? So force, right? So motion, okay, right? The Newton's laws of motion, right? So first law, second law, third law, right? So basically examples of, right, so these laws, okay. So then work, energy, especially, right? So kinetic energy, potential energy, right? In force, centripetal, centrifugal, okay. Then in motion, the planetary motion, the laws of Kepler. Okay. Then light, right? The laws of light regarding light is basically. So refraction, so reflection, okay, total internal reflection. So scattering, dispersion. Okay. So then sound, right? So surface tension, viscosity, right? So these are the common topics. And we'll cover that also. Okay. So then some miscellaneous, right? So for example, solar power, right? So photovoltaic cells, how these photovoltaic cells work, right? Then alternative energy, for example, fuel cells, right? So fuel cells, hydrogen fuel cell, right? So there is no requirement of charging, right? You just need to supply hydrogen, okay? And lithium batteries. So currently, right, which is going on, right? So recently, a lithium reserve, right, was discovered in Mandya district in Karnataka, and also in Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so Jammu and Kashmir, right? So lithium batteries. So how they work, right? So then microbial fuel cell, right? So using microbes also, we can generate electricity. So microbial fuel cell. So that also we'll discuss. Okay. So then nanotechnology. Okay. So materials behave very differently, right? At nanoscale, right? So what are the applications of nanotechnology? Okay. For example, the graphene, right? The graphite at nanoscale, okay, carbon nanotubes, right? So how graphene conducts electricity, right? So why gold reacts at nanoscale? So basically, normally, gold will not go under reaction very easily. So that's why we prefer gold. So that is the reason. Okay. So other metals, they undergo reaction very easily. So that's why gold is the most valuable metal currently. Okay. Normal gold will not react, but gold at nanoscale works as a catalyst for chemical reaction, right? So nanourea, right? So carbon nanotubes, right? So that and all we'll discuss in nanotechnology. Okay, right. So these are the major topics, right, which we will cover, right? So any other topics? So if you have any idea. Yeah. Right. So you are left out, right? We'll see and let's let you know. So these are the major topics. Okay, so we'll start with nuclear technology. So first we'll cover basics. So what is atom? Hmm?
Smallest unit of
Smallest unit of any element. Okay. Fundamental unit of matter. Element is also fine. So element itself is an atom. Okay, because so normally the materials are available in compounds. Okay, for example, methane. So carbon dioxide, right? So nitrous oxide, right? So gases basically. Okay. And even the iron, right? So ferrous oxide, right? So silicon, right? So silicon dioxide. Copper is also available, right? So along with many different, right? So materials. Okay. So atom is basically the fundamental unit of matter, right? Which means, so it's just like a brick in a wall, right? So where brick can be considered as a fundamental unit in a wall, right? So like in human body, right? So organs are made up of tissues, right? And tissues are made up of different number of cells. So cell is basically the fundamental unit, right, of a organ, right, or organism we can say, right? So fundamental unit of organism, cell, right? In the same way, so atom is also a fundamental unit of matter. Okay, right? So there were many theories, right? So that claimed that right, atom is the last fundamental unit, right? It cannot be divided. Right? So yes, it cannot be divided, but as many theories, right, or research were conducted, right? So J.J. Thomson, Rutherford, right, and all. So finally, it was concluded that atom is made up of 3 subatomic particles. Okay, and these 3 subatomic particles are protons, neutrons, and electrons. Okay, right? So let's see. Yeah. So fundamental constituent of matter, right? So atom is fundamental constituent of matter, right? And it is made up of 3 tiny subatomic particles. Okay, subatomic, right? So they are not independent like atom, right? Which means atom cannot be divided again. So that is the last fundamental unit, but it is made up of 3 subatomic particles. Okay, that makes the structure of the atom. Okay, and they are proton, that is positively charged, right? So neutron, there is no charge, but mass is same as that of the proton. Okay, right? So then electron, so that is negatively charged. Okay, right? So proton and neutron, right? So they makes up the center of the atom, right? So you'll see the structure here. For example, this is the structure of the atom, right? And this is the center, right? So called as nucleus. Okay, right? So center of the atom is called as the nucleus, right? In cell also there will be a nucleus. Huh? Only in animal cell or in plant cell also? Hmm? Only in animal cell there will be nucleus. Both, any cell, right? So there is one exception. So prokaryotic cells, right? So nuclear material will be there, right? Nucleic acid will be there, but not inside a nucleus, which means nuclear membrane will not be there, but nuclear material will be there, right? So that is basically a single cell organism. So like amoeba and even bacteria. Okay, so that is prokaryotic, right? And eukaryotic cells will be having a nuclear membrane, which means a completely defined nucleus will be there. Okay, right? But that is different. So this is different. Okay, so there will be no protons, neutrons. Otherwise, the human's behavior would have been different. Okay, right? So now only we are, right? So very different, right? Kind of people there are. Okay, yeah. So okay, so atom, right? So is the fundamental unit, right, of matter, and it is made up of 3 subatomic particles, right? So one is proton, So that is positively charged. So one is neutron. So there is no charge, but mass is same as that of, right? So proton. And there is another subatomic particle called as electron. So electron is negatively charged. Okay. So proton and neutron, okay, that makes the center of the atom. And that center of the atom is called as nucleus. Okay, right? And the electron will be revolving, right, outside the nucleus in orbits, right? So in orbits. So here, the structure of the atom, right, is maintained due to the attractive, so that is binding forces, okay, right? So called as nuclear binding forces, right, and also the repulsive forces, right, of the proton, right? So here electron and proton, they play a very major role, right? So that itself will study, right, in nuclear technology, okay, how this fission and all will happen, okay, right? So proton, and neutron, so makes the center of the atom, is called nucleus, and electrons fly around above the nucleus in small cloud. Okay, right? So KPSC prelims question, right? So basically, nucleus of an atom contains, right, so which of the following? Okay, some basic, sometimes they ask very basic questions. Okay, because so most of us, what we will do, or KPSC or UPSC exam, so we'll only focus on standard books, so not on basic NCERT. Okay, but what they will do, they will give questions from NCERT. Okay, there will be some 2 to 3 questions in each subject, right, which will be based on NCERT. Okay, so option was like protons only, neutrons only, protons and neutrons only, right? So protons, neutrons, and electrons only. Okay, so nucleus of an atom is made up of protons plus neutrons. Okay, so protons plus neutrons, right? So here there are 2 words. One is atomic number, another one is mass number. Okay, right? So again, previous year question, right? Which of the following defines atomic number? Okay, so atomic number is, what is atomic number? Number of protons or neutrons, or basically we can say, just say number of protons. Okay, right? Because usually in radioactive, right, so nuclei, number of neutrons will be different. That's why we cannot call, right, so neutrons, number of, but basically number of protons or electrons we can say. Okay, so number of protons usually, okay, so number of protons makes up the atomic number, right? Then what is mass number? So number of protons plus neutrons, right? So for example, C6 12, right? So here 6 is atomic number, which means there are 6 protons, correct or wrong? There are 6 protons, and this is mass number, right? So there are 6 protons, means there will be 6 neutrons. Okay, right? So then H12. So this is basically an isotope of hydrogen, so called as deuterium. Okay, deuterium, right? So here atomic number is 1, so mass number is 2, which means there is 1 proton and 1 neutron. Okay, so deuterium, right? Or, right, we can take example of helium 24. Yeah, it's an atom. So atomic number is 2, right? And mass number is 4, right? So then any other example, like oxygen 816. right? 8, 16. Sodium, sodium, 11, 23 or 22. Okay, right? So isotopes, okay, that we'll see. What are these isotopes? Okay. So atomic number and mass number clear, right? Very basic, right? So isotopes. So isotopes are basically atoms of the same element, right? So atoms of the same element. For example, carbon is an element, right? So atom of the carbon, right? Atoms of the carbon which have same atomic number but different mass number. Okay. And why there is a difference in mass number? So due to difference in the number of neutrons, right? So for example, so this one, protium, right? H11, visible? No? It's too heavy. Yeah. Right? H11. So that is protium. Okay. So there is only one proton, there is no neutron. Right? The hydrogen atom. Okay. So then deuterium, H12. So that is basically there is one neutron. Okay. And tritium, H13. Right? So there are two neutrons. Okay. So not only that, right? C611, C612, right? It's a pair of isotope. So here we have atomic number same. So they are atoms of the same element, which means atomic number will be same, but mass number is different. Okay, so mass number is different, right? So then uranium 90 to 235, right? So and 238, right? And even 233, 239, right? So that is basically plutonium. Okay, so isotopes are atoms of the same element, right? So they have same atomic number, right? But different mass number. Okay, and this different mass number is because of difference in the number of neutrons, right? So like isotopes, there are isobars. What are these isobars? It's a part of same atomic mass or mass number, or we can say atoms of the different element, right? Atoms of the different element with same mass number. Okay, right? For example, right? So calcium 40, right? So potassium 40, right? So mass number is same. Okay, so they are called as isobars. So what are allotropes? Right, so same chemical properties but different physical properties. Okay, for example, carbon, right? Or the allotropes of carbon, graphite, coal, and diamond. Okay, right? So coal is a bad conductor of electricity. Coal will not conduct electricity. But graphite can conduct electricity. So coal is black in color. Diamond, right? So most of you may love diamond, but diamond is made up of carbon. Okay, so carbon, the most hardest material is carbon, diamond, right? To cut one of the strongest metals and all, diamond is used because diamond is the hardest known material. Okay, coal will not shine, but diamond, right, is known for shining. Okay, that is allotrope, right? So they have same chemical properties, which means they are made up of carbon only, but their physical properties are different. Okay, that happens because of difference in the temperature and pressure and all. Okay, so they are called as allotropes, right? So isotopes, isobars, and allotropes. Okay, right? So in isotopes, right? So there is a difference in the number of neutrons, and due to this difference, right? So that will become unstable, right? The nuclei becomes unstable because there is a difference in the number of neutrons. Okay, and this unstable nuclei give off radiation to become or to achieve stability. Okay, and those radiations are called as particle radiations, right? So that will be in different forms, right? For example, alpha particles, beta particles, right? So positrons, so neutrons, right? And even gamma rays. Okay, right? So the unstable nuclei, right? So they emit radiation to achieve stability, right? And isotopes of such atoms are called as radioactive isotopes. And this radioactivity is the major focus of nuclear technology. Okay, right? So radioactivity, so radioactive nuclei, which means it is emitting radiations in the form of particles. For what? To achieve stability. Why to achieve stability? Because the nucleus is unstable, because there is a difference in the number of neutrons, right? And this property is used in the nuclear technology and even in the nuclear reactors, right? So small nuclei, basically they will not undergo fission easily, but a larger nuclei undergo fission very easily. Okay, because there will be high difference in the number of neutrons. Okay, right? So there, the repulsive forces, right? So nuclear repulsive forces become dominant. Okay, that's why the larger nuclei undergo fission and the smaller nuclei undergo fusion. Okay. So this is radioactive decay. So what is radioactive decay, right? So it is the process by which an unstable nucleus, right, emits elementary particles. So like alpha, beta, gamma in the form of radiation. So that is itself is called as radioactivity. Okay, so radioactivity, right? So radioactivity is the process, so where unstable nuclei emits, right, so particles, right, or elementary particles to achieve stability. Okay, so alpha, beta, gamma, positron, neutron, or even, right, so gamma rays. Okay, so alpha is nothing but helium atom. Okay, proton is nothing but an atom of hydrogen. Okay, right. So why this instability is caused, right? So due to excess of protons or an excess of neutrons, right? And as the atom attempts to become stable, right, it releases energy and the matter in the form of radiation, right? So this energy is nothing but heat. Okay, right? Energy in nuclear reaction is nothing but heat, and that heat will be utilized, right, to generate the steam and to run the turbine, and the turbine in turn will be connected to a generator, electricity generator. So that's how electricity is generated. We'll see the nuclear reactor also. So which are the different components. Okay, right. So yeah, so instability is caused due to excess number of neutrons or protons, but most probably due to excess number of neutrons. Okay, and to achieve this stability, so what they do, they emit radiations in the form of particles. Okay, and along with these particles, huge amount of energy is released. Okay, and that energy is nothing but the heat, right? And also neutrons are released, right? So that we'll see in the fission, right, reaction. Okay, And there is this word called as half-life. Right? I've heard about carbon dating. Right? Our archaeologists to conclude a particular history, right? The time scale of a history. So what they do, they use this carbon dating technique. Yeah. So what they do, for example, let us say if they discovered some material, right, in some historical site or archaeological site, right? You know, every material on this planet Earth, right, is made up of nutrients, we can say, right, or different elements. One among them is carbon, right? And there is a half-life for carbon, right? So that is around 5,400 years, correct? Approximately somewhere around. Okay. So what they will do, they will take a reference isotope, so that is the carbon isotope, right? And they will compare it with the carbon isotope which is present in that material. And that's how they decide the year, right? For example, right? So this particular material is 2,700 years back, which means it belongs to, right, so this particular civilization. Or let us say 5,400 years back. So this particularly belongs to Indus Valley civilization. So like that. Okay. So half-life means, right, the time for the half the radionuclei, right? So radioactive nuclei in any atom to undergo radioactive decay, right? So basically it is the time for half of the nuclei, right, to undergo radioactivity. So that is called as half-life. Okay. So that is used in carbon dating, right? So these are the different radiations visible. Arun. Okay. I forgot your names. Again, I will ask tomorrow. Okay. Monisha. Gagan. Yes, Gagan. Vardhini. Okay. Monisha, Gagan, Vardhini. Shilpa. Monisha, Gagan, Vardhini, Shilpa. Kirtana. Bhavani. Okay. Pooja. Chinmay. Huh? I'm sorry. Unique name. I will remember now. Sheetal. Okay. Sahana. Shubha. Yeah, Shubha. Right? So don't mind. Okay. I need names to ask questions. Okay. So alpha particle, right? So basically it's a helium nuclei consisting of 2 protons and 2 neutrons. Okay. Right. So they have asked in some KPSC exam, okay, not in UPSC. UPSC is to easy questions here, right? So UPSC little bit difficulty level will be more. Okay. Right. So beta particle is nothing but high energy electrons. Right. Then positron, right? Electron, so mass same as that of electron, but positively charged. Okay, right? So proton. So what is proton? So nuclei of hydrogen atom. Okay, right? So that is H11, right? So nuclei of hydrogen atom, right? So sometimes these basic questions only, right, so will be more important. Okay. So neutron, so particles with mass approximately equal to that of proton, but no charge. Yeah. So finally, gamma ray, right? So that is very high energy electromagnetic radiation, which is released in, right, so nuclear reactions. Okay. So these are the different radiations, and they have different capacity, right? All of them are not same, right? So some of them can be stopped by just hands, right? So some of them will enter into our body, right? They may cause damage, right? So some of them require thick concrete walls. Some of them can be stopped just with a, right, lead plate. Okay. Yes. Hamsa. Huh? What you guys are discussing? No, nothing. Okay. Right. So that's why nuclear reactors structure, right, so will be very strong. Okay, right. So very thick concrete walls will be constructed. Okay, so that even though there is an accident, right, so nuclear radiations can be stopped. Okay, so here we can see how how it can be stopped. So radioactivity. Okay, so alpha particle, right, so can be stopped through hands, which means they will not enter through our body, pass through our body, right? So beta, right, so with the aluminum sheet, it can be stopped. That is high energy electron, beta means, right? So then X-rays, right? So X-rays are basically used for a diagnosis purpose, correct? Which means they can pass through our body, right? So yeah, it can pass through human body and it can pass through aluminum sheet also, but it can be stopped through a lead sheet. Okay, lead plate. Then gamma rays, right? So gamma rays and neutrons are the strongest, right? So they are released in the nuclear reactions, especially in the fission reactions. Okay, right? So gamma rays and neutrons, both they can pass through our body, can pass through aluminum sheet and even the lead sheet, but we require a very thick concrete wall to stop them. Okay. And there is another most abundant, right? So subatomic particle called as neutrino. Okay, neutrino, right? So neutrino are, right? So basically there are billions of neutrino, right, which are passing through our body on daily basis. Okay, and neutrinos are released, right? So in this solar system or even, right, so they are released during the formation of the universe itself, the Big Bang and all. Okay, so at present, some millions of neutrinos are passing through our body, right? So they are the only subatomic particles, right? They are the only fundamental particles, right, which will never interact with anything. Okay, that's why again there is a experiment is going on, right? So called as Indian Neutrino Observatory. Okay, India-based neutrino observatory, right? It was in news again, right? So it's being constructed in Tamil Nadu, right? So there is a district called as Theni district, right? In a hill called as West Bodi Hills. Okay, so why to study these neutrinos means again to understand the universe in more detail, because these neutrinos are there since the universe, right, was born. Okay, so that these neutrinos will give us the information so regarding the formation of universe and all. Okay, so neutrinos are second most abundant fundamental particles, right? Any doubt? Right, so this is just an introduction class. Anything you want to ask? So regarding exam or regarding this science syllabus? Evolution of Earth. It is there in geography. Geography, right? So overlapping. Evolution of man is in anthropology, so we'll study there, not in science. But in geography, right, it is covered in much detail. Right? Evolution of Earth. And it's there in this 11th standard book also. Geography NCERT. So physical geography. Yeah, and most some topics like solar energy, wind energy, hydro energy, geothermal energy. So that is also there in geography. Okay, that also will be covered in geography. Right? But anything which is related to science, we will cover regarding the energy part also. Any doubt? That's it. Okay. So I think Monday to Thursday class will be there. Right. So we may require some 20 classes to cover science. Okay. Right. Especially technology part will focus more, not the basic science. Okay. That you have to study on your own. Right. So please go through the 6th to 10th NCERT textbook. Okay. And for KPSC also it is same because the textbook has been copied. Right. So same science book is there in state syllabus also. Okay. And one standard book you can refer. Right. So Ravi P. Agrahari. Ravi P. Agrahari. And any current affairs, right? So material or magazine. Okay. Okay. So we'll stop here. So we'll continue tomorrow. Thank you. ನಿದ್ದೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಅಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಬೋರಿಂಗ್ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲ. Okay. You guys can tell me some jokes otherwise. ಶಶಾಂಕ್. ಹಾ. ಸೊ ನೀವೇನೋ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಅದು. ಓಕೆ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ನೀವು ಬಂದಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ವಾ?